Hello and welcome to News Tonight on Rajya Sabha TV. I'm Tina Jha. Let's begin with the day's top headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi calls for reforms at the United Nations. In his address to the 75th session of the UN General Assembly, asks how long will India remain out of the UN decision-making process? India is helping the whole world to deal with the coronavirus pandemic, says Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Assures the world that India's vaccine production and delivery capacity will be used to help all humanity in fighting this crisis. Prime Minister Modi holds wide-ranging talks with his Sri Lankan counterpart Mahinda Rajapaksa. Both leaders discuss in detail bilateral ties, focusing on further expanding cooperation in key areas. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu calls for strengthening the country's primary healthcare system. Addressing the 38th annual convocation of American Association of Physicians of Indian origin, Naidu says strong primary healthcare systems have better health outcomes and lower inequalities. And the BJP makes a major reshuffle in its organizational setup. Dushyant Kumar Gautam, D. Purandeshwari, C.T. Ravi and Tarun Chugh among new general secretaries. Tejaswi Surya made the party's youth wing president. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has made a strong pitch for an expanded role for India at the United Nations during his address at the 75th session of the UN General Assembly. The Prime Minister asserted that reforms in the United Nations is the need of the hour. He pointedly asked, how long will India be kept out of the decision-making structure of the United Nations? Modi also questioned the role played by the UN during the coronavirus pandemic and assured the world that India's vaccine production and delivery capacity will be used to help humanity in fighting COVID-19. The Prime Minister also said that India is proud to be one of the founding members of the United Nations. Let's listen in to some excerpts from the Prime Minister's speech.
1945 की दुनिया निश्चित तौर पर आज से बहुत अलग थी। पूरा वैश्विक माहौल, साधन, संसाधन, समस्याएं, समाधान सब कुछ भिन्न थे। ऐसे में विश्व कल्याण की भावना के साथ जिस संस्था का गठन हुआ, जिस स्वरूप में गठन हुआ, वो भी उस समय के हिसाब से ही था। आज हम एक बिल्कुल अलग दौर में हैं। 21वीं सदी में हमारे वर्तमान की, हमारे भविष्य की आवश्यकताएं और चुनौतियां अब कुछ और है। इसलिए आज पूरे विश्व समुदाय के सामने एक बहुत बड़ा सवाल है कि जिस संस्था का गठन तब की परिस्थितियों में हुआ था, उसका स्वरूप क्या आज भी प्रासंगिक है? पैंडेमिक के इस मुश्किल समय में भी भारत की फार्मा इंडस्ट्री ने 150 से अधिक देशों को जरूरी दवाइयां भेजी हैं। विश्व के सबसे बड़े वैक्सीन उत्पादक देश के तौर पर आज मैं वैश्विक समुदाय को एक और आश्वासन देना चाहता हूं। भारत की वैक्सीन प्रोडक्शन और वैक्सीन डिलीवरी क्षमता पूरी मानवता को इस संकट से बाहर निकालने के लिए काम आएगी। हम भारत में और अपने पड़ोस में फेज 3 क्लिनिकल ट्रायल्स की तरफ बढ़ रहे हैं। वैक्सीन की डिलीवरी के लिए कोल्ड चेन और स्टोरेज जैसी क्षमता बढ़ाने में भी भारत सभी की मदद करेगा। पिछले 8-9 महीने से पूरा विश्व कोरोना वैश्विक महामारी से संघर्ष कर रहा है। इस वैश्विक महामारी से निपटने के प्रयासों में संयुक्त राष्ट्र कहां है? एक प्रभावशाली रिस्पांस कहां है? संयुक्त राष्ट्र की प्रतिक्रियाओं में बदलाव, व्यवस्थाओं में बदलाव, स्वरूप में बदलाव आज समय की मांग है। आज भारत के लोग चिंतित हैं कि क्या ये प्रोसेस कभी एक लॉजिकल एंड तक पहुंच पाएगा? आखिर कब तक भारत को संयुक्त राष्ट्र के डिसीजन मेकिंग स्ट्रक्चर से अलग रखा जाएगा? जिस देश में हो रहे परिवर्तनों का प्रभाव दुनिया के बहुत बड़े हिस्से पर पड़ता है, उस देश को आखिर कब तक इंतजार करना पड़ेगा? अध्यक्ष महोदय, अगले वर्ष जनवरी से भारत सुरक्षा परिषद के अस्थायी सदस्य के तौर पर भी अपना दायित्व निभाएगा। हमारा मार्ग जन कल्याण से जग कल्याण का है। भारत की आवाज हमेशा शांति, सुरक्षा और समृद्धि के लिए उठेगी। भारत की आवाज मानवता, मानव जाति और मानवीय मूल्यों के दुश्मन आतंकवाद, अवैध हथियारों की तस्करी, ड्रग्स, मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग के खिलाफ उठेगी। ये बात सही है कि कहने को तो तीसरा विश्व युद्ध नहीं हुआ, लेकिन इस बात को नकार नहीं सकते कि अनेकों युद्ध हुए, अनेकों गृह युद्ध भी हुए। कितने ही आतंकी हमलों ने पूरी दुनिया को थर्रा कर रख दिया। खून की नदियां बहती रही। इन युद्धों में, इन हमलों में जो मारे गए वो हमारी आपकी तरह इंसान ही थे। वो लाखों मासूम बच्चे जिन्हें दुनिया पर छा जाना था, वो दुनिया छोड़कर चले गए। कितने ही लोगों को अपने जीवन भर की पूंजी गंवानी पड़ी, अपने सपनों का घर छोड़ना पड़ा। उस समय और आज भी संयुक्त राष्ट्र के प्रयास क्या पर्याप्त थे?
Hours before Prime Minister Modi's address, India hit back at Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan for his anti-India speech at the United Nations General Assembly. The strong-worded response to Pakistan came after India exercised its right of reply once all countries concluded their speeches in the high-level debate of UNGA's 75th session on Friday. Indian diplomat Mijito Winito, who walked out from the UNGA hall during Imran Khan's speech, delivered India's right of reply. He called Imran Khan's virtual address full of lies, misinformation and warmongering.
Mr. President, I am exercising India's right of reply to the diatribe that we heard this morning from the Prime Minister of Pakistan. Mr. President, this August forum witnessed today a new low on its 75th anniversary. The leader of Pakistan today called for those who incite hate and violence to be outlawed. But, as he went on, we were left wondering, was he referring to himself? This hall heard the incessant rant of someone who had nothing to show for himself, who had no achievements to speak of, and no reasonable suggestion to offer to the world. Instead, we saw lies, misinformation, warmongering, and malice spread through this assembly. The words used today at this great assembly by the leader of Pakistan demean the very essence of the United Nations. For a nation that is deeply buried in medievalism, it is understandable that the tenets of a modern civilized society, such as peace, dialogue, and diplomacy, are far-fetched. Allow me, Mr. President, to jog their minds a little about the stellar record of Pakistan. This is the country that brought genocide to South Asia 39 years back when it killed its own people. This is also the country that is shameless enough not to offer a sincere apology for the horrors it perpetrated even after so many years. This is the same country that provides pensions for dreaded and listed terrorists out of state funds. This is the same country that has the dubious distinction of hosting the largest number of terrorists proscribed by the United Nations. The leader whom we heard today is the same person who referred to the terrorist Osama bin Laden as a martyr in his parliament in July. The same leader who spewed venom today admitted in 2019 in public in the US that his country still has about 30,000 to 40,000 terrorists who have been trained by Pakistan and have fought in Afghanistan and in the Indian Union territory of Jammu and Kashmir. This is the country that has systematically cleansed its minorities, including Hindus, Christians, Sikhs, and others, through the abuse of its blasphemy laws and through forced religious conversions. For someone who professes to be a champion of Islam, this is also a country that has encouraged killing of fellow Muslims merely because they belong to a different sect or to a different region in Pakistan, and through sponsoring terrorist attacks against its neighbors. The only crowning glory that this country has to show to the world for the last 70 years is terrorism, ethnic cleansing, majoritarian fundamentalism, and clandestine nuclear trade. Mr. President, let me assert here loud and clear. The Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir is an integral and inalienable part of India. The rules and legislations brought in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir are strictly internal affairs of India. The only dispute left in Kashmir relates to that part of Kashmir that is still under illegal occupation of Pakistan. We call upon Pakistan to vacate all those areas that it is in illegal occupation of. What should rather be on the agenda of the United Nations is Pakistan's deep state and its unrelenting political and financial support to terrorist organizations and mercenaries which are a threat to global peace and security. The only way for Pakistan to become a normal country is to abjure its moral, financial, and material support to terrorism, turn its attention to the problems faced by its own population, including its minorities, and stop misusing UN platforms to further its nefarious agenda. Thank you, Mr. President.
In some other news, Prime Minister Narendra Modi held wide-ranging talks with his Sri Lankan counterpart Mahinda Rajapakse on Saturday. At the virtual summit, both leaders discussed the entire expanse of their bilateral ties with a focus on further expanding cooperation in key areas. Here's a report. India gives special priority to the relations with Sri Lanka under its Neighbourhood First policy, said Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the virtual bilateral summit with his Sri Lankan counterpart Mahinda Rajapakse. Modi said he was confident that the massive electoral victory of the ruling party in Sri Lanka, backed by the Rajapaksa government's policies, will facilitate deeper cooperation between the two countries.
भारत और श्रीलंका संबंधों में एक नए ऐतिहासिक अध्याय को जोड़ने का बहुत अच्छा अवसर बना है। दोनों देशों के लोग नई आशा और उत्साह के साथ हमारी ओर देख रहे हैं।
कोविड महामारी की ये वैश्विक महामारी की वजह हमारा अर्थव्यवस्था, श्रीलंकी अर्थव्यवस्था, भारत की अर्थव्यवस्था टूट गई थी। उसे ऊपर उठाने की शक्ति भारत से हम मांग रहे हैं और भारत की सरकार उसके लिए हमें सहायता दे रहे हैं।
During the talks, Prime Minister Modi announced a grant assistance of $15 million for the promotion of Buddhist ties with Sri Lanka. During a discussion on trade ties, Prime Minister Modi conveyed to his Sri Lankan counterpart that he hopes Colombo relaxes temporary restrictions on the import of a few Indian products. India also proposed launching a bilateral air bubble with Sri Lanka for travel between the two countries. India is also currently discussing Sri Lanka's request for the $1.1 billion bilateral currency swap, besides the issue of deferring the debt repayments by Sri Lanka. The issue of devolution of powers by the Sri Lankan government to the minority Tamils in the island also figured prominently in the talks. Prime Minister Modi emphasized on the full implementation of the 13th Amendment to the Sri Lankan Constitution, saying it is essential for the peace and reconciliation process. Both sides also exchanged views on the fishermen issue and agreed to continue and strengthen the ongoing constructive and humanitarian approach of dealing with it. According to the Ministry of External Affairs, Modi and Rajapaksa expressed satisfaction over robustness of defence cooperation and agreed to further strengthen maritime security ties. Rajapaksa also made a special mention of the Jaffna Cultural Centre, an iconic project built with Indian assistance. The centre is almost ready, and Prime Minister Rajapaksa extended an invitation to Prime Minister Modi to inaugurate the project. India will also facilitate the visit of a delegation of Buddhist pilgrims from Sri Lanka on the first inaugural flight to Kushinagar in Uttar Pradesh.
Both leaders agreed to strengthen cooperation in the areas of agriculture, animal husbandry, science and technology, healthcare, Ayush, as well as skill development, particularly by increasing training of professionals, thereby realizing the full potential of the demographic dividend in both countries.
The virtual summit was Prime Minister Modi's first such bilateral engagement with a leader of a neighbouring country. For Rajapaksa, it was the first diplomatic engagement with a leader of a foreign country after being sworn in as Prime Minister. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, National Security Advisor Ajit Doval and Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla also took part in the meeting. With inputs from Akhilesh Suman, Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. The naval forces of India and Japan began 3-day maritime military exercise in the North Arabian Sea on Saturday. This is the 4th edition of the Japan-India Maritime Exercise, or JIMEX as it's called, and features a multitude of advanced exercises across the spectrum of maritime operations, including multifaceted tactical exercises involving weapon firings, cross-deck helicopter operations, and complex surface, anti-submarine and air warfare drills. In view of the COVID-19 restrictions, the naval exercise is being conducted in a non-contact at sea-only format. This was the first military exercise after India and Japan signed a landmark agreement on 9 September that will allow their militaries to access each other's bases for logistics support. Time for a short break here on News Tonight, but more news and updates will continue on the other side. Do stay with us. Welcome back. The disruption caused by the coronavirus pandemic must be seen as an opportunity to radically reform our health sector by effectively harnessing the power of digital technology and artificial intelligence-powered tools, said Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu on Saturday. Addressing the 38th annual convocation of American Association of Physicians of Indian origin through video conferencing, the Vice President called for digitization of the health records and creation of a national platform to facilitate collection of comprehensive healthcare data across the country. He said this will ensure that all stakeholders in the health sector are digitally connected. Calling for strengthening India's for strengthening the country's primary healthcare system, the Vice President added that as the world's second most populous country with a track record of rapid economic growth, India faces both unique challenges and unprecedented opportunities in the sphere of public health. He also asserted on the need to deliver quality healthcare to all, irrespective of where one is living.
I see the Indian healthcare scenario as a spectrum of contrasting landscapes. At one end of the spectrum are state-of-the-art urban hospitals and research centers that are undertaking cutting-edge research, driving our healthcare industry forward. At the other end are our rural healthcare institutions that need substantial improvement. There is still a huge gap, I must admit.
And let's now take a look at the latest COVID-19 situation in the country. Daily cases continue to fall as India reports rise in the number of daily recoveries. Recoveries are now more than 5 times the active cases, with India reporting more than 93,000 patients cured in the last 24 hours. Here's a report.
Even as total COVID-19 infections have crossed 59 lakh, recoveries are now more than 5 times the active cases in the country. The recovery rate of COVID-19 patients is 82.14%. Till Saturday morning, India added 85,362 cases in the last 24 hours. As many as 1,089 new fatalities were reported in the same period. The total death toll due to COVID-19 so far is 93,379. India now has 9.6 lakh active cases and 48.49 lakh recovered COVID-19 patients. The recovered cases exceed active cases by 38.88 lakh. The steady trend of very high recoveries continues with more than 93,000 recoveries registered in the last 24 hours. Maharashtra, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Kerala and Tamil Nadu reported the highest one-day increase of cases in the past 24 hours. With more than 18,000 new cases in the last 3 days, cases in Kerala are growing at the fastest rate at 3.51%, which is more than double the national average of 1.53% per day. The state added 35,000 new cases in the last 1 week, taking the number of confirmed infections to 1.61 lakh. Kerala also has the 5th highest active cases in the country. The 5 states reporting the most number of deaths in the past 24 hours are Maharashtra, Karnataka, Uttar Pradesh, Tamil Nadu and Punjab. Punjab has reported a high number of deaths this month, while the state has a little over 1 lakh cases, of which only 21,000 are active cases. The death toll has crossed 3,100. According to the Indian Council of Medical Research, the cumulative total samples tested is 7.02 crores. The number of samples tested on Friday is more than 13.41 lakh. As daily testing shows a sharp increase, the positivity rate on Saturday dipped to 8% as compared to 9% last week. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
The BJP on Saturday announced the list of its national office bearers as the party effected a major reshuffle in key organizational positions. With the reshuffle, the team has a more pan-India look as the party has now brought in new faces. Tejasvi Surya, an articulate and fiery advocate of the Hindutva plank, has been appointed as the party's youth wing president. Surya replaces Poonam Mahajan. West Bengal leader Mukul Roy has been made a vice president, while Vinod Tavade and Pankaja Munde of Maharashtra are now national secretaries. Uma Bharti has been dropped as Vice President along with Member of Parliament Vinay Sahasrabudhe and Prabhat Jha, Om Prakash Mathur as well as Shyam Jaju, while Saroj Pandey has been dropped as General Secretary. There are 5 new General Secretaries among the total 8. Dalit leader Dushyant Kumar Gautam, D. Purandeshwari of Andhra Pradesh, C.T. Ravi of Karnataka, Tarun Chugh of Punjab, and Dilip Saikia from Assam. Bhupendra Yadav, Kailash Vijayvargiya, and Arun Singh have been retained as General Secretaries. Prime Minister Narendra Modi greeted the new team of office bearers and expressed confidence that they will uphold the glorious tradition of the party of serving the people of India selflessly and with dedication. Health Minister Dr. Harshvardhan on Saturday lauded the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research for its contributions in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. Speaking at the 79th Foundation Day of CSIR, the minister said the scientific community has risen to every challenge facing the country and converted it into an opportunity. He added that the organization has contributed towards making ventilators, PPE kits, and genome sequencing. In addition, the CSIR also initiated projects like repurposing of drugs for COVID-19.
Whenever there has been a challenge before the country in any form, we have always been able to convert that challenge into an opportunity. Our scientists, they could produce the kits, they could produce the PPEs, they could produce the sanitizers, they were the routine things. But those who were making aeroplanes, they were able to produce the BiPAP ventilators.
Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu also congratulated CSIR on its Foundation Day. Naidu said CSIR laboratories are in the vanguard of scientific research in India and have played a pioneering role in nurturing talent and making the country self-reliant in various endeavors. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also lauded CSIR, saying it is at the forefront of furthering scientific research and innovation in India. He added that the organization is also playing a valuable role in fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. The Prime Minister, in fact, also extended his best wishes to CSIR for its future endeavors. And the Karnataka Legislative Assembly on Saturday passed two bills, amendments to the Land Reforms Act, liberalizing farmland ownership, and the Agricultural Produce Marketing Committee Act. The Karnataka Land Reforms Second Amendment Bill 2020 amends the Act of 1961. The Land Reforms Bill replaces an ordinance promulgated by the state government in the month of July. The bill removes almost all restrictions on buying farmlands. The bill was passed by voice vote. The Assembly also approved the amendment to the Agricultural Produce Marketing Committee Act. The APMC Act allows farmers to sell agricultural produce directly to private players. The mortal remains of legendary playback singer P Balaramanyam were laid to rest at his farmhouse near Chennai on Saturday with a 24-gun salute by the Tamil Nadu police. After the singer's son, S.P. Charan, performed the last rites, amid Vedic chants by the priests, the last post was played by a police band and 24 personnel in ceremonial attire gave a gun salute. Tamil Nadu Culture Minister, Andhra Pradesh Irrigation Minister, Tollywood actor Vijay, film directors Bharati Raja, Amir, music composer Devi Sri Prasad, singer Mano, actor Arjun, and comedian Maila Sami were among the celebrities who turned up to pay their last respects. Though the police had initially said only about 150 people would be allowed to pay homage in view of the COVID-19 restrictions, more people trooped to the singer's idyllic house to pay their homage. And that's it from us in this bulletin. Thank you very much for your time. Good night.